Hey guys, here I am again with another Flickers of Fear movie review. Doing another new movie this time around. I'd actually been hearing a fair amount of buzz around, around the horror community about this 2023/2024 Australian horror thriller, which is called You'll Never Find Me. So I've been kind of hearing about that for several months. So I was happy to see that Shudder actually added it to their lineup, quite a while ago, actually, back in March of 2024. Now, this is the first movie directed by Indiana Bell and Josiah Allen, and Indiana Bell also wrote the script. And this is actually a really strong debut. Uses like a single location and a very, very minimal cast to really kind of like maximum effect. Now, right from the gate, though, just a caveat, You'll Never Find Me is very, very far from like an action packed gore fest. I kind of feel like it might be too slow or too ponderous for some horror fans. Pretty much the entire plot revolves around two characters in a single house talking, and it could actually easily work as a stage play. So if that sounds like it might turn you off or that's not really your thing, then this is probably not the movie for you. So, like, in other words, I can totally see how some people might not vibe with it because it seems on the surface like not much is happening. On the other hand, I actually found it like really mesmerizing. I was actually kind of sucked in by this ever-changing mystery that was going on, like, and the dynamics between these two characters. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up kind of before diving in. So Brendan Rock plays a character named Patrick. You don't actually find out his name until about halfway through, but that's what his name is. And he's kind of this big, burly, bearded dude. And he lives alone in a mobile home, which is in some kind of like an isolated trailer park in Australia somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where. We very rarely see the outside of the house. They do show it a couple times, and we don't really see many of the other houses or any of the other residents or anything like that. So it does seem like very claustrophobic. So at the beginning of the movie, it's about 2 in the morning, and Patrick is sitting at his kitchen table, and he's listening to this old timey radio that he has, and it's actually playing this song which it came out in 1959, and the original song was an instrumental by Santo and Johnny. It's called Sleepwalk. I mean, if even if you don't know the name of it, if you heard it, you would probably instantly recognize it because it's been used everywhere. But the version that's in the movie is actually a vocal version, so it has words. That's by Betsy Bry, and it's actually like it's a gorgeous song. I really like it. So this song is kind of like it'll sort of be like a thematic touchstone, I guess, like throughout the rest of the movie. Like it turns up several more times. So as Patrick is sitting there, he's kind of like drinking, it looks like, and he has this little bottle or this little vial of like some clear liquid that we don't know what it is. And then he has what we presume is a flashback to it kind of looked like an afternoon and it was like really rainy. And there's this kind of indistinct looking young woman like peering into a car window like during a rainstorm. Now, in the present, as he's presumably remembering this, there's kind of a really bad thunderstorm like starting to whip up outside of his trailer. And then, very suddenly, somebody pounds on his front door. Now, at first, he pretty much just like shouts for whoever this person is to fuck off, but whoever it is that's knocking is like really, really persistent. So finally, he very grudgingly goes to answer the door. Now, to his surprise, there is kind of a young, pretty, like dark haired woman, and she's standing there on his doorstep, and she's soaking wet from the rain because it's already started storming. Now, she actually asks him for a ride into town, and then there's kind of like a couple minutes of sort of like an uncomfortable back and forth, and he actually invites her inside. So she sort of reluctantly comes in. This woman, by the way, she is never named. She's credited only as the visitor in the end credits, and is played by an actress named Jordan Cowan. So Patrick offers to make her some tea, and she declines because you don't know this dude, so you know what I mean. And he gives her a towel, and he starts kind of complaining, "Hey, you're dripping water all over my floor, or whatever." Now, once she's inside, he tells her, "Oh, I have a car, but it's been acting up, and it likely wouldn't make it to town anyway, like especially in this shitty weather." So the visitor at this point, as you would be, is kind of getting a little bit edgy. And so she's like, "Okay, well then can I use your phone, like to call a taxi or an Uber or whatever?" But of course, he doesn't have a phone either. Now, he does tell her, he says, hey, but this, the trailer park that I live at, it has a payphone. The only problem is that it's outside of a gate, and the gate is locked at this hour. Because, like I said, it's the middle of the night. And it's like, so if you want to find the phone, I would have to go with you, like, to unlock the gate so you can get to the phone. Now, he actually gives her a bunch of change for the phone and says, hey, when the storm lets up, because it's really, really bad outside, like, hurricane fucking conditions, you know what I mean? He's like, when the storm lets up, I'll walk with you to the phone and you can call for a car and you can get out of here and everything will be fine. So, because he's not really doing anything overtly threatening, but because he seems to keep, like, putting her off, she's kind of feeling like way like more and more uneasy, like I said, as you would. And the weather outside is just getting worse and worse. I mean, it's just like it's horrifying outside. Now, while you're watching this movie as a viewer, you're also becoming increasingly tense because it's pretty clear that Patrick is maybe up to something nefarious, but you're not entirely sure what it is. Like I said, it's nothing overtly threatening, but if you're a woman and you've ever been in a situation like this, it's just, even if nothing's overtly threatening, you're like, yeah, this something is just like not right. Now the guy, he does seem to be aware of the woman's nervousness, and he kind of seems like he's sort of awkwardly trying to put her at ease, right? He's like, yeah, no, you can dry your clothes on my heater, and you can take a shower and I won't bother you, and all this other kind of stuff. And he actually does even apologize for being a dick and telling her to fuck off when she was first knocking. And he explains to her, he's like, oh, the little kids, the other little shits that live in this trailer park, they've kind of taken to like coming and knocking on my door in the middle of the night and then running away, and it's like really annoying, and they do it all the time. And the interesting thing about it is that even though you're pretty sure when you're watching it that the dude is up to something, the script also introduces some ambiguity about her, about the visitor. It kind of hints that she might not be who she says she is, you know what I mean? Like, for example, she initially claims that how she ended up getting out here, she's like, oh, I was at the beach and I fell asleep and I, overslept and I missed my bus, like back to my accommodations. That's what she called it, like, so a hotel or whatever. And she's like, so I had to come around, like, knocking on people's doors, like, to get a ride to town so I could get back home. Now Patrick is immediately suspicious of this story because when she showed up, she didn't have any shoes on, like, she was barefoot. And he's like, it's very unlikely that she walked the considerable distance from the beach, like, with bare feet. And during their conversations, she also sometimes like contradicts like stuff that she said earlier. Like one time she says she wants to go home instead of back to the hotel that she originally said she was staying at. And at one point she said she'd been at work when she'd previously said she was at the beach. She's also pretty vague about whether she's a local or whether she's a tourist. But I should note that Patrick like pretty much swears that he's seen her somewhere before. Like he thinks that she looks kind of familiar. And then there's also creepier shit going on. Like the visitor, she goes and like takes a shower and she sees what is apparently a vision of like blood dripping from her head while she's in there. And Patrick also has what is apparently a vision of blood on his hands when he's washing out this pan that he had made her some tomato soup in, which she doesn't eat again because she thinks he probably drugged it. And on top of all that, like the storm that's going on outside seems oddly unnatural. Like it keeps causing like all these really ominous like creaks across the roof of the trailer and all of these kind of wailing sounds that sort of sound like human voices. So as the story goes on, like every word that the two of them say to each other is just kind of fraught with some kind of hidden meaning. And you, as you're watching it, you're kind of wondering exactly what is going on with these two. Like it's very obvious that one or both of them are lying, but you're not really sure to what purpose. Now, at one stage, Patrick and the visitor, they seem to establish like some kind of, some measure of trust after the visitor realizes that Patrick hadn't actually locked her in. Like she thought that he had locked her in, but, find out that he didn't. And so she's like, oh, well, maybe he's okay after all. And they also kind of bond. They start like playing cards and stuff because, like I said, the weather is so bad they can't really go outside. And he tells this very seemingly heartfelt story about meeting his wife, who has since died. Soon enough, though, the trust that they establish is completely shattered. And the third act of the movie goes in a pretty violent and somewhat surreal direction, I'm going to say. Not real surreal, but a little bit. But despite the surrealism, it actually does make plain what the connection between the two of them is. Now, as I mentioned, this is definitely a character based chamber piece. And it leans very, very heavily on these weird conversations, like between Patrick and the visitor. I found these interactions like really engrossing, and I was kind of like on the edge of my seat the whole time, like trying to figure out what was happening because you weren't entirely sure. Like I didn't even really guess what was going on until like way like late, like toward the end. You know what I mean? The acting in this is really, really good. The cinematography, like I said, it's almost entirely set like inside the dude's trailer. But the cinematography is really nice, like the way the shots are framed and stuff like that. And I also shout out to the sound design. I think that gives the whole thing like this really unsettling atmosphere. But yeah, the whole thing just has this really creepy, like dread infused kind of thing, even though it's mostly just two people talking. So as I mentioned, I mean, if you're a fan of kind of more action or plot focused horror, I guess you might maybe would find it boring. I'm not really sure, but I thought it was like pretty creepy and very well executed. Actually, gave me kind of similar vibes to this year's movie Heretic, which I saw and loved because that movie was likewise focused largely on dialogue and kind of uncertain motives as kind of like a driver of the suspense, which is kind of what this one is like too. I don't think this is as good as Heretic because that's like one of my favorite movies this year, but this is kind of on the same, it's kind of gave me a similar vibe, you know what I mean? So yeah, but this movie, They'll Never Find Me, I think it's a great debut from kind of a filmmaking team that will definitely probably do some really good shit in the future. So that will do it for this movie review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Bye.